Episode 6 and Episode 6, 7, 8, and 9, I have gathered under the heading of Whiteness and Its Enemies. And given the seriousness of such discussions, I think we'd start on a lighter note. There is a recent French detective series, very popular outside France even, called Lupin. And there's an adorable dog in Lupin who has the name J'accuse, which in French means I accuse. Now, almost any Frenchman of any degree of education will recognize the quotation. And the quotation is from the first line of Émile Zola's accusation, polemical assault on the French High Command in 1896 over the Dreyfus Scandal. In the declaration, in this assault on the prestige and honor of the French army, Émile Zola said that the army had surrendered to anti-Semitism and falsely accused, tried, convicted, and sentenced through the court system an innocent Jewish officer, accusing him of selling secrets, military secrets, to the Germans, condemning the poor man to perpetual servitude on Devil's Island in South America. And of course the name of the man was Alfred Dreyfus. And his name became the very embodiment and the word of the greatest scandal of late 19th century France, which shook the French Republic, seriously diminished the prestige of the army in French life. Some historians argue it opened the way for civilian control of the army, unresisting civilian control. And at the same time, because the Church, the Roman Catholic Church, took a hard line on Dreyfus, the Church itself lost its official position in French education. Now, the lesson here we might want to reflect on is this was a left-wing victory over the forces of the right. Now, conservatives nowadays, especially ultra-conservatives, especially ultranationalists, present themselves as virile young men on the warpath, fighting off feminized, feeble left-wingers. And this is a reminder, history is, you never know where you're going to end up. And here's an example of the left wing being muscular and the right being completely incompetent in how it wages its struggles. There's a warning there for the right. And again, another reason why we might want to learn French with Nick Fuentes, and why Nick Fuentes would unlearn French. Battles can go two ways. However confident you are winning, battles can go two ways. Now, the Dreyfus Scandal is connected in many people's minds as opening the door on the depths of anti-Jewish feeling in a democratic nation. Germany, across the border, was another thing, with another anti-Jewish tradition. Much worse, if that's imaginable. And the interesting connection here is two stories, narratives. One would link the Dreyfus Scandal, late 19th century, to the Holocaust. That what was revealed, the ugly underside of French anti-Semitism, exposed, wasn't just the Russians who were doing it, West Europeans, and opened the road to Auschwitz in some way or another. Then, of course, history again being so unpredictable. Now, the argument is being made, in what sense did the Holocaust lead to the Gaza Genocide? However defined, however justified, however considered indefensible. Now the right wing has taken a step further and said, now wait a minute, let's go back and say now the real issue here is not Auschwitz. The real issue is how the Dreyfus Scandal, the battle between French nationalists and their liberal critics, can be linked perversely to the Gaza Genocide. All of a sudden, as I said, books on a shelf catching dust all of a sudden become something potent, dangerous, intrinsically interesting, of course, stimulating above imagination. Few fictional stories today can be set against the drama of our politics. And that was true in the Dreyfus Scandal as well. So, where are we going to go with this? We've got our two narratives, three narratives, and two links, how they tie up. Do we draw conclusions? Do we trace a historical phenomenon from the Dreyfus Scandal to Gaza? Or do we trace it from the events under Hitler, the Third Reich, the Shoah, to Gaza? Now, the book I want to think about here, actually there are two. One of them is not French, but really, really useful, and has been important to me in setting out my arguments here. And I'll show you. It's by a German historian named Ernst Nolte, who I knew and interviewed for the Japan Times. And I was very fond of him. He was very intelligent. My liberal colleagues went completely berserk when they discovered that I'd interviewed him, but that's another story. On the issue, the book, of course, is Three Faces of Fascism. And the three fascisms he's describing, Ernst Nolte. One is, of course, National Socialism, and then back to Italian fascism. And the third is the one most neglected, which is Action Française, which was the intellectual, vigorous side of fascism. If you want a serious argument with a serious historical tradition and a set of classic texts that bear examination, then Action Française will do the deal in a way that's not true of Hitler, who was an action man and wasn't an ideas man. And Mussolini was similar, an action man and not an ideas man, although better read than Hitler. Nevertheless, when you come to people like Maurice, for example, who coined the notion of politics first, and therefore planted the seed for France d'abord, France first, and of course then there's America first. But also the notion popularized the very word nationalism. Again, the French linguistic ability to invent powerful concepts politically, elector, voter, republic, constitution. The list is almost endless. And here again, we find the vocabulary, the instinctive feel for the powers of language that the French have come into play. So, there we have it. Now, the French book I want to talk about is this. An extraordinary woman biographer. Sarah Vayda, in writing his long, considered, beautifully written, difficult French biography of Maurice Barrès, takes us to another level linguistically, and it's a hard road to hoe. It's difficult, but as I say, the insights on every page leave you thinking, oh, I hadn't considered this carefully enough, and it's remarkable. I just want to start where she starts, which is the death of one of Barrés's grandchildren, in Algeria, during the French effort to keep Algeria French. He dies in an incident, a military incident, fighting the indigenous rebels. And he believes he has died in an honorable cause that his country came to conclude was not honorable. That heroic action is more important than ideas or writing. Or better still, the alliance of ideas and writing and heroic action is the perfect marriage. And this is a soldier's view of the world, a patriot's view of the world, a nationalist's view of the world. And the intellectual milieu he raised in, of course, kept him from being a simple-minded soldier. None of that stuff. Nevertheless, the ultimate proof of the power of an idea is its ability to motivate a man or woman to sacrifice his life for it. And again, we come across this distinction of almost sweat and tears that divides the ultranationalist from a moderate liberal at a dinner party. And so there we have, she's able to convey this without taking sides, but convey this in such a powerful way that one is left with an indelible impression of the reality and truth of the sentiments behind even French colonial policy. And again, this shading of reality. It is not an excuse. It is not a Kantian ethical assumption, agreed. It is not a liberal outlook, but it is reality. And we need to think about that more carefully than we have. And this business of what ultranationalism can teach us, and vice versa, is a key theme here, as we try to navigate with some thought and sensitivity and perception what the very idea of whiteness and its enemies means. The drama continues.